All right, I apologize. I tried to be fast and make it under the 5 minutes, but if you're watching this, you realize I didn't do it. So as I was explaining in the previous video, you can set up and how we walk through on the bell ringer Google form, you replicate that and create a new form for each checkpoint. You can do that's option one. Next option is, as we showed here, you have the one check for understanding Google form. You're not typing in a question here, it's just question marks. And again, I always recommend that you have a bell ringer form for every day beginning your class. That way you can capture that initial thought process and a backup form of attendance. It's automatically captured because the students are inputting the information. The check for understanding, if you use the second option, is you use this one form for the checkpoints over and over and over. And that's why we have the question marks here and not a specific question. Because essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking this hyperlink and you're going to be reusing it over and over and over and over. So the main thing is you want to capture the timestamp and the student who's inputted an answer. The question's not so much that important. It's up to you and whatever's easiest. So now the second part on why this is all important. In the case of our district, we're going to be doing synchronous instruction, which means the teacher is going to be live through a camera feed, teaching and instructing our kiddos throughout the entire day. TEA states that we need to show that the kid has been actively engaged for that whole instructional period. So in the context of, say, sixth grade, it has 240 minutes that they need to be engaged with the whole lesson. For the purpose of the kids, they're still tied to, as we reference it, the old House Bill 5 of the 90% attendance rule. If a kid is not there for 90% or more of the instruction, it's considered absent. Question is, how do you prove that? If they're in your classroom, it's obvious. No, Johnny came in at 9 a.m. and they stayed here for the whole 45-minute period. I can prove that they were here. If they're remotely checking into your classroom, they might be there when they initially log into your class, but then you're like, they turn off the camera, which is a no-no. We're going to be covering norms on that. The camera should be on. They should be engaged all the time. But how do you prove it? Well, the easiest way is these check for understandings, because as we already pointed out here, when the kids submit and we have the timestamp, it shows you the date and time on when they submitted that form. And then they have the email address, so you know who submitted that. So it's not so much really, is their answer correct? Hopefully it is, and that means that they're engaged in understanding. But what's really kind of crucial is that you're capturing, but the students are doing it for you, showing their level of engagement at certain points throughout the lesson. So say, someone from TEA drives down from Austin, knocks on your classroom door, and they ask, hey, Mr. Bettis, how can you prove that Brian was actively engaged in your lesson and support the attendance that's reported in Skyward? Oh, very easy. I come over here to my Google Drive. I come over here to recent documents. I have over here the check for understanding responses. And of course, you're going to have multiple entries over what day were you wondering about? Oh, well, yes, August 8th, he was engaged because he checked in here and he checked in here when I did my check for understanding. So this is just a way for you to capture and just kind of, cover yourself to show kid was engaged in the lesson. They were doing what they should have been doing throughout the course of the lesson without you actually having to record and try to figure out a way. You have to keep in mind, studies show the average teacher does 80% of the work in the classroom. That's insane because you're doing 100% of the work outside of the classroom when you're prepping for all this. So when we get into the classroom, you need to shift that balance where the kids are doing 80% of the work. You're doing 20% because you're facilitating. So are there ways that kids can prove that they were there? Here's one example. So this is why we're going to be embedding the bell ringer to begin with. And then it's your choice if you want to use the same checkpoint form over and over and over, or if you want to do separate ones for each one, whatever works for you and floats your boat. So if you have any questions, as always, email me. Remember, don't subscribe, rant and rave in the comment section down below. I hope this kind of gives you an insight on why we're having this, because again, ultimately it comes back to accountability. You need to show the kids were there engaged, that you were doing what you need to be doing. But on the flip side, to make sure that your school and your district are getting their ADA funding, because that's going to impact what you're able to get the following year for our salaries, wages, and extra things like that. And we want to make sure that we have all bases covered. Thank you. We'll catch you on the next one.